Welcome to a Between Bites Piecemeal episode. Piecemeal is a podcast hosted by the Emily Program, and Between Bites are short episodes addressing topics you want to know more about. Piecemeal covers topics related to eating disorders, body image, and how society may influence our thinking. Please use your discretion when listening and reach out for support as needed. I'm your host, Jillian Lampert, and for Between Bites, you get just me. Welcome. Today's topic is all about how eating disorders and substance use disorder can overlap. April is Alcohol Awareness Month, and so we thought it would be a good time to talk about how eating disorders and substance use, including alcohol, can overlap, why they overlap, and how we can approach these two seemingly separate issues from an integrated perspective. So, first of all, why do we need to talk about eating disorders and substance use disorder together? We need to talk about them together because they often happen together. Research studies estimate about 50% of people with eating disorders struggle with misuse of substances, and about 35% of people with substance use disorder struggle with an eating disorder. The most common misused substances among people with an eating disorder are caffeine, diet pills, and alcohol. And the most common eating disorder behaviors among people with substance use disorder are binging and purging. And across the US population, substance use disorder impacts about 30% of adults and about 15% of adolescents. And eating disorders impact about 9% of people across the population. So we need to talk about them together because they happen together, something that is referred to frequently as co-occurring. And because a lot of people are misusing caffeine, misusing diet pills. And when I say diet pills, we mean things like metabolism boosters, fat burning drinks and supplements, or allegedly fat burning drinks and supplements, other supplements sold to us as ways to reduce our appetite and increase our metabolism. So a lot of folks are misusing caffeine containing foods, diet pills, as well as alcohol. And a lot of people are also restricting their food intake, eating in ways that are fueled by really trying to make the body smaller, and often then lead us to overeat. When we undereat, often that leads us to overeat, which can feel very shameful and can also trigger the whole cycle of undereating and overeating over and over again. So there are a lot of people in need of more information, more support, and more treatment for these conditions than are receiving care right now, in part because of lack of awareness. So talking about it is key. So let's dissect that a little bit. Why do these two things happen together? Why do substance use disorders and eating disorders co-occur in people? And as our understanding of both substance use disorders and eating disorders has evolved over the last 10 or 15 years, we now understand that part of why they happen together is because they share some of the same neurobiological underpinnings. And what do I mean by neurobiological underpinnings? Really looking at the genetic research done in both fields, that research has shown that some people have a genetic predisposition for each or both of these conditions, meaning they have some genes that will make it more likely that they will develop a substance use disorder when they, for example, take that first drink, or more likely that they will develop an eating disorder when they, for example, start changing their food intake. They are more likely to develop those illnesses than someone without those gene markers. And since these genes influence the same parts of the brain, namely the parts of the brain that register reward, it's no wonder that if both of these altered gene patterns change how the brain experiences reward, that these conditions are more likely to happen together. And what do I mean when I say reward? I mean the parts of the brain that both anticipate something happening, which feels good. Anticipating something happening can feel good and feel rewarding. And also the part of the brain that registers, hey, that felt good. Let's do that again. That's another part of the brain. So together with the strong social influences that lead people to change the way they eat or take that first drink, including all of the conflicting and confusing and misleading messages that tell us things like we'll be more loved or more accepted if we eat differently, if our bodies are different, if we join the party, so on. All of those social messages combined with those genetic predispositions, it's sort of like a candle wick that's lit by the match of the social messaging. So the candle wick is the genetic predispositions, and the social messaging and those pressures are the match that lights it on fire. If you don't have the genetic predispositions, you might get a little burned by the match of social pressures, but it goes out. If that match lights a candle, it can burn for a long time. So, since eating disorders and substance use disorder happen together frequently, we need to think about addressing them together. So, our treatments for eating disorders and substance use disorders often happen at different organizations, different healthcare organizations. This is in part because of how our healthcare system is set up to have substance use apart from mental health services, and in part because both substance use and eating disorders are illnesses that require specialty care. They have unique components and they need unique treatments. So at the Emily program, we work really closely with our colleagues in the substance use and addiction space to really ensure seamless transitions in care for people with these co-occurring conditions. Usually it's important to address the substance use disorder first so that the person can get sober. It's hard to do eating disorder treatment or any other mental health treatment when someone is still actively using a substance because of the way that the substance impacts our thinking and our feeling and our moods and our health. So substance use is typically the first thing we help with. And then once someone has sobriety, some sobriety established, we can move into the eating disorder work. Because again, that same part of the brain is impacted by both illnesses, we get some benefit for each treatment for the other. And also when one gets better, often the person finds the other getting louder. So while we're treating one, it could be helping the other. And also at the same time, somebody can feel like when they're having treatment for one, the other one feels like it's getting worse. And so this is why ongoing support and treatment is critical. We need to sequence these or combine these interventions so that people get the support they need throughout the recovery process. Lots of people with these illnesses want to sort of like take care of it themselves. These are illnesses that require a support system for recovery. They just do. And if each has a strong social influence in its development, which they do, of course, they each need a strong social support system in recovery. It just follows that that would be a really necessary part of recovery is having that social support system. So it's why we really encourage people to get help and not just try to sort of tough this out or go it alone or do it themselves. So to wrap up, the main message we want to share is this. It is important to know more and then do more. If you or someone you know is struggling with a substance use disorder or an eating disorder or both, reach out for help. It is never too late. It is never too early. Help is available. And the sooner you reach out, the less time you will suffer alone or that person will suffer alone. Neither an eating disorder or a substance use disorder is your fault if you have one or both. And nor is it the fault of your loved one if you know somebody struggling with one of those or both of those. No one chooses to have either of these illnesses. The good news is that choosing recovery and having the support of loved ones can be a huge key to health and well-being. Recovery is really hard work, but it's worth it. So we hope this has helped you sort of increase your understanding of eating disorders and substance use disorders during this Alcohol Awareness Month. And as always, if you have a topic you'd like to see discussed on Between Bites, drop us a line and let us know. If you enjoyed today's episode of Piecemeal, please subscribe, rate, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Learn more about us at emilyprogram.com or find the Emily Program on social media. Piecemeal is produced by the amazing podcast team at the Emily Program. Until next time, take care. Thanks for listening.